my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Sara Dusek. Sara, would you please stand? And you can use the podium if you'd like. And I think the nicest compliment I could give her is simply to say she's our elementary principal at Malone. She's a fantastic person, has 3 young ones at home, and takes care of Malone and our superintendent of schools.
Thank you for having me back. I was here, I think it was in October. Cromco had invited myself and Ms. Stepan in to introduce the new principals to the district. And so just a quick little brief history about myself. My roots began in Iowa. Went to school there, went to college there, student taught in Minnetonka, got a job in Minnetonka, then met my husband from River Falls, got a job in Matamidi, and then started working on my admin degree. And then this summer when the positions came open, I applied. And so I'm new to the gate, but loving every minute of it. Carol had invited me to come in and just kind of share like the day in the life of my world. I put some storyboards on your table. I apologize because I don't remember the crowd being this big the last time I came, so there's not one for everybody, so you'll have to share. But it's just kind of the day in the life of what does my day look like every day. You can't be an elementary principal without bringing a book. So I found this book. It's kind of a funny book because it's really old and dated, but our media specialist, Erica Kieser, brought it to me and she said, this will just give you a big chuckle and tell you what you're supposed to do every year from now on when I first got the job. So what do principals do when no one else is looking? I'm just going to read it. It takes like 2 minutes. So what do principals do when no one is looking? They're having coffee. Honestly say I don't know if I've ever had coffee. I've been invited to Kiwanis twice. Principals support sports. Never been on the roof. Principals search. Thankfully I haven't had to search through our garbage cans yet. Principals help. I've never had to jump a bus. Yeah. Principals serve. I have helped in the lunchroom. Principals are always in good forms. I have filled out a lot of forms. Principals listen and listen and listen and listen. That we do. Principals know the scoop. Thankfully, I have Mr. Dan to pick up all the scoop when the scoop happens on the floor. Principals count. We have done counting this year. We did Malone Reads Many Minutes, and the students, we calculated 100,000 minutes, and they won their goal, and now we've upped the goal to 200,000 minutes read during school, and I'm happy to announce that if they hit it, which I have no doubt they will, we're hoping before spring break, myself and actually Mr. Carl Calabrese will take a pie to the face from different students on top of some other rewards. So we tally a lot of that kind of stuff. Principals shovel, again, Mr. Dan. Not me. Principals receive calls, yes. Principals schedule, yes. Spend a lot of time doing that. Principals rescue. We actually have had a kid stick a tongue to a pole. I can say it wasn't me who rescued it, it was Jane Henderleit who rescued. We did giggle about it in the office after. Principals mop, principals give. And while no one is looking, principals make a difference. And that's the line that I pretty much hope every day when I go home that I did make a difference to somebody, whether it's a student or a staff member. But then on the front of the storyboards, if you have a chance to look at it, I always start my day in the morning coming in and I check in with Connie and Julie and Mel, my wonderful office assistants, and we talk about what do we have going on for the day. Are there any assessments happening? Are there any programs happening? Anything like that to kind of get ready for the day. And then the bell rings and I go out into the hallway and typically try and greet the students as they're walking through the door, give high fives, get a couple hugs, lots of hugs because it's K2 and they hug everything. Hear all kinds of stories about their nights. And I always tell the parents that if you only believe half of the stories they share about me when they come home, I'll only believe half of the stories that they share about me. We hear everything. The parents do what we do about them when they walk through our doors sometimes. We probably cringe. And then the students all get settled and then it's kind of, we start our day with greeting the students every morning over the announcements. I get on the announcements when I'm there in the morning and I'm not in meetings with Rick. I get on and we announce every birthday of the day, or right now we're doing half birthdays, so a lot of times it's 6, 7 kids. And they all get to come down to the office and I give them hugs and wish them a happy birthday. We do the pledge as a school every day. And then we talk about any events or anything that's coming up, get the students prepared for the day. After we do all the morning announcements and the kids are settled in for the day, that's when I kind of dive in to all of my paperwork, whether it's teacher evaluations, whether it's looking at discipline or bus referrals, whether it's planning professional development that's coming up on the agenda, connecting with Ms. Stepan or Mr. Figgy or Mr. Igo or any of the other admin team about different tasks that we have to do. A lot of the day is filled up with paperwork, but that's the part of the day that I choose to just, like the part of the day that I love the most is I always kind of build in every day around 9:30, 10 o'clock when I've started diving into the paperwork. I do my brain breaks. I call them brain breaks, and I try and hit every single classroom, whether it's just to peek in for 5 minutes to see what's going on, to check in with kids in the hallway, get some more hugs, pick up some garbage that's on the floor, help Mr. Dan. But that's the way every single day I make it a goal to try and get into every single classroom. And the reason I do that is it keeps me connected with what's happening in the classrooms. It gives me just even a quick snippet at a teacher's instructional practice, even though I don't typically try and use that as like their evaluation purpose, but it gets me into the classes, it gets me connected to what the teachers are doing, and it gets me visible out there for the students, and it helps build those relationships because I want to have those solid, positive relationships with the kids with me, because I don't want it to be that you have to go see Mrs. Dusek and they're scared to death because they don't have any reference to me other than a black hole office in my office. So I try to get out there and be visible so that when a kid does have to come to me for a discipline thing, which usually, not like high school, it's not anything typically super major at the K2 level, but it's an opportunity that if they do have to come in for a discipline, we can sit at the chair and I can say, all right, buddy, what's going on? And they'll open up to me because they know me and I'm not this stranger to them in the building. So if you have the storyboard, there's just a couple of pictures of different things, like things that I get to see when I do my walkthroughs. I'll see anything from students laying on rugs, reading books. I'll see them working in groups together to complete a task. I'll go out on the playground and see them making snow angels or building snow forts. There's a picture with a girl sitting in a chair. It's one of my favorite pictures taken, I think, this whole year. It's on the front, and it's a girl sitting in a chair and a boy sitting next to her laying his head on her shoulder, and it was a partner read time, and she was reading to him, and I just thought, oh my God, that's such a cool thing. So that's the kind of cool stuff that I get to have. And then every month you can see the poster where it says trustworthiness. Every month at Malone Elementary, we do a different character trait. And we talk about building good character. And it's usually around a theme like Thanksgiving, it was gratitude, Christmas, it was generosity, and how can we give in ways that's not handing a present? Can we give our time? Can we give our friendship? Can we give our compassion to people? And during that month, I have a really funny story to share with you. During that month of December, we started really talking about random acts of kindness. How can we do random acts of kindness for people to make them feel good and have a smile on their face during the day? And I'm sitting in my office doing some of that paperwork that I was telling you about, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a kid army crawling on the floor. And I'm like, what is going on? And Connor's looking, all of us are like, what is he doing? He's continuing to army crawl across the office floor, and he slaps something on my door, and then he gets up and he tears out of the office. I'm like, Connie, I look at Connie, I'm like, what the heck happened? She was like, I think a kid just army crawled to your office. I think so too. And he had stuck a random act of kindness to my door, and it was a lollipop, and it said, I like you. I was like, oh. Like, it was just so sweet. I honestly don't know if I can tell you which kid in the building it was that popped into my office that day, but those are the times then I think that afternoon, I went to our mini admin meeting and I looked at Figgy and Igo and I said, how many of you have had a student army crawl into your office to give you a random act of kindness? Because that's the stuff that as K2 I get to experience, because they're just so young and lovable yet, and they just love everything about you, and if you can connect with them, you can just see them start to kind of shine. So it's kind of fun. And then on top of the students, I can't forget the staff, and there's a picture in there of a lot of our staff, and we're all in pink that day. And it's one of our teachers is pregnant, and she found out she was having a girl. So the next day we did a pink out, and we all dressed in pink to celebrate baby girl that's going to be joining our family. Malone Elementary. I get so emotional. I just love it. I love my job. And so it's just, for me, all day long, I spend my time building those relationships so that when I build it with the staff, I build it with the students so that when I have to discipline a student, it's not traumatizing, that they feel safe coming to me and they respond to the discipline that I give them. And for teachers, it's building that relationship so that when I come to them and say, I noticed this instructional practice thing happening in your classroom, we need to talk about it. Let's reflect about it, let's think about how we need to change. If I have teams that aren't working well together, if I have that relationship with them, we can pull that team together and we can problem solve, and nobody feels threatened by me. And the other thing that I've always continued to promise my teachers is, I told Carol, I said, you know, this is my first year, I'm 6 months into being an administrator. It was 4 short years ago that I was a classroom teacher. I was teaching first grade. And that is one thing that I've been in education, I think it's 20 years now. And I spent 16 good years as a classroom teacher. And so I've always promised my staff, I will never, in any of my decision making, forget what it feels like to be you. Because I lived it and I was you for 16 years, and I had administrators that didn't think about how would this impact me. But I also tell them that at the core of it though is the decisions we have to make have to be what's best for kids. And sometimes we have to disrupt the comfort of us as a staff to do what's best and right for kids. So sometimes it's gonna feel yucky and sometimes it's gonna feel crazy, but we have to trust each other along the way in the process. So really that's how I spend my days, being visible and keeping that door open so that they can trust the process and grow, and we can grow together as a staff. So, and then on the back of that storyboard, these aren't my typical days. These are the fun days that, like when we earn Wacky Hair Day, you know, or we have turkey bingo, or we have Halloween parades. You know, they're just the kind of unconventional, non-traditional days that we have that I also think are super important because it gives kids a chance to be kids. I think sometimes we can get too muddy in the world of curriculum and standards and data and all of that, and those things are great, and that is where I spend the bulk of my time. But I think in getting muddy with that, sometimes we forget that they're 6, 7, and 8. And they need to have turkey bingo, where they get bingo and then they gobble their way down to 4 corners to get a prize. Or they, you know, get to wear pajamas to school. Or they get to put a pie in Mr. Carl Breeze's face. You know, it's just, those are the things that, like, I've had, since we announced that the prize was a pie in the face, I think I've had 70 kids come to me and say, I can't wait to put a pie in your face. And I'm like, and I'll say, I can't wait till I get a pie in the face because it means you read. It means you read a lot. I will gladly take 10 pies to the face if it means that you read and you're growing your reading skills. So I don't know, so some of the fun pictures back there, it's the music program, it's Halloween, it's Hat Day. There is a picture with kids standing around a bunch of boxes, and that was when we earned hats because we helped stuff the bus for the food pantry. And we'll be having another Stuff the Bus coming. Hopefully I'll be working with Pete, French, and Carl again to do another Stuff the Bus in the spring when the food pantry is ready to open their thrift shop too. So we're hoping to do another round of that. So I feel like I've talked a lot. Do you have any questions about the day? We had told Rick the other day in our meeting, we were talking about goals and stuff, and he just said, no, what are some of your goals? And I paused and I said, I'm happy here. I really am. And I think there's a great, you know, I was nervous. I do have a 10, a 7, and a 2-year-old. And we're building a house and life is full. And I was nervous about taking that leap into administration with life so full, especially with a 2-year-old little guy, because I feel like, can I have that balance to be a mom to him the way I was a mom to my 10-year-old? And can I continue to be a mom to the 10-year-old the way I need to be and be an administrator? And I told him, I said, I feel like here I do have that balance. I can achieve my professional goals, but I can also be a mom. So I'm just happy. So I get emotional about it sometimes because I'm emotional anyway, but I'm happy.
Sarah, do you see any community issues that maybe we're not aware of?
No, you know, I think that was probably the toughest adjustment for me into going to administration is when you're a classroom teacher, you're pretty shielded from the custody disputes. You're shielded from the CPS phone calls. You're shielded from knowing what the result of those CPS phone calls are. And in administration, you're not. In administration, you know that there's a custody dispute because typically they're in your office using you and the children as a pawn in that custody battle. Or you're usually sitting with the teacher who's nervous to dial the phone to make that CPS call. And you're nervous when you find out that the social workers actually come in and interview the child on site because you know that there's something warranted in that call that you made. And then there's the emotion of that, like, I'm glad I made the call because there actually is something, but also knowing that there could be a child who's not going to their home that night and the effect that that has as well, So I think that's probably for me in the community is just the biggest shift that was for me is that I'm just not shielded from that stuff.
So you don't think we're much different than River Falls or Hastings or any other community?
No, I don't, I couldn't say for sure, because I was shielded from that stuff in my other roles, but I don't think Prescott's any different than anywhere else. I think if you would talk to an administrator in River Falls, they'd say the same thing. They're in on the CPS calls. They're in on the custody disputes. In Matamita, I was the achievement and integration coordinator, and I spent a lot of my time fighting for our Mono students and our Somali students and our, students who didn't celebrate traditional holidays, because in a community like Matamita, where you're pretty well off and a lot of white rich, black poverty Hmong don't fit in, So I think every community has their issue, and it's just trying to figure out how to work within those issues. So I think the thing for me is, and I think I said it the last time I was here too, is all through my education career, I heard, you gotta bring the community in, you gotta bring the community in, be involved in the community, be part of the community. But all of the districts that I was a part of were bigger. I did 4 years in Minnetonka, which is a significantly bigger district than Prescott. Very rarely brought community in. The community that I brought in there were the parents of my students. Matamita, which is smaller than Minnetonka, but bigger than Prescott, same thing. Didn't do a lot of work with community until my last year there when I was the Achievement and Integration Coordinator, and I'd have to work with the food shelf or housing developments to help support our poverty minority kids. But there again, community was the parents of my students. Here, and it might be my role, but I also think I see it with my teachers too, it's a tight-knit community, and the community wants to weigh in a lot on what happens in our educational system. And so you have to have that bond with the community. I think Carol, the whole reason he brought me here today was because I wrote a letter to the editor. And that letter to the editor talked about how random people in the first 3 months of my job, random people who had no connection to our school, showed up with monetary, clothing, all kinds of donations for kids. And I would say, well, how can we thank you? We don't want any recognition. Well, do you have children in the, nope, I don't have any children in the schools. We were at coffee this morning. We all decided to pass the hat. It's not much. We collected $75, but we just want to drop it off and we wanted to buy hats and gloves for kids. And that's the kind of stuff that I don't believe happened in those other communities. But because the community is so ingrained in the schools here, when 50 and 60-year-old men and women are sitting around having coffee and they say, well, let's pass the hat and collect money, you think to let's drop it off to our schools. And because you are ingrained in our schools and you like, Halloween parades and stuff like that, those mean something here. And it kind of brings me back to my roots, because I grew up in a town about more the size of River Falls, but a lot like Prescott, where there wasn't a big city around us. We were the big city. All the small towns came to us. But Friday night, your outing, whether you had kids or not, was the high school basketball game, the high school football game, whether it was boys or girls. I couldn't believe it when I walked in to a basketball game at Minnetonka, girls basketball, and there were parents in the stands. When I played basketball, it was standing room only, and we were girls. And for the first year of my basketball career, we played 6-on-6. Ugh. Talk about paint drying, right? And so I feel like Prescott's bringing me back to my roots that I grew up in. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so happy here, is because it feels like coming home when I know I won't be going home. you know, my home is here now, that gets my roots with my husband, we're building a house, our forever home. And so, just,
Do you use community volunteers or, you know, not just parents, I'm thinking of other communities. Do you have a volunteer program? Or?
you know what, we don't have like a super established one, but we do have teachers that have adults, community come in and work. There's one that comes and works in a second grade classroom every week. He's in there. He's a retired gentleman, older, and just started, I think, when his grandkids were there, and just comes in every week for about 45 minutes and reads with kids. So if that's something you're interested in, contact Connie at our office. We can send out an email to teachers and say, does anybody want somebody in the community to come in and just even read with kids? And that's all he does. The kids just come and sit, he reads with them. He checks out 45 minutes later and he's done. So, yeah,
Well, it's a perfect age, you know.
It is.
You know, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not getting the attitude yet, you're not getting, you know, it's just,
Right.
they want to hang around with you and.
Yeah.
You want
They
to
will
redo a high
snuggle-
school kid, let me know.
I'd rather
right
be
onto your
so
lap. So no, if anybody is willing or wanting to come in to help, you know, there are some that will come in and they'll help just even do, like, they won't work with the kids, but they'll cut laminating for teachers, or they'll help do like that teacher prep stuff that takes a lot of time, but isn't the instructional prep stuff. So, you know, they would welcome any of that. Yeah.
Sarah, a couple of things. You mentioned a letter to the editor, and I have a copy of that for anybody who wants to look at it. It was in one of our weekly establishments, or publications, I should say, about a month ago. Very, very well done, very positive about the community, and you might enjoy reading it. Also, I would like to volunteer some help for you in case you ever need some help. There's a person who's a Kiwanian who was an elementary principal for many, many years. You've met her, you know her, Marcia. Call upon Marcia.
In fact, and that was another example of how I felt like community. Like, these people are tied in. Within the first couple weeks in the summer, the first couple weeks, I got a call from Connie and said, I have 2 people who want to take you out for lunch. We didn't know anybody. It was her and Scott Halverson. Took Danita and I out for lunch. We met for lunch. We talked about school and us.
And I'm so thrilled to be here today, Sarah, to see how your first 4 months have been, or 5, now 6 maybe. And you sound to me like you're just a perfect elementary school principal, and we hope you will indeed stay a long time and be really a wonderful influence to teachers and students like it would seem to me that you're doing. So welcome again.
Thank you. I was excited to see you here too, because I didn't know if you did.
Where was your hometown in Iowa?
I grew up in a small town called Carroll, Iowa. It's about 70 miles straight west of Ames. Kind of a perfect triangle between like Ames and Des Moines and Omaha, Sioux City area.
Well, the reason I asked, I spent half of my lifetime down in Iowa.
Oh, did you where?
I'm an auctioneer. I was at Davenport, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
But I
Complete other side of the state. Yeah.
I grew up in your state, Lamar's.
Yeah, so
You
I
went to Carroll.
went to Carroll Kemper.
Yeah, I used to.
And we played the Mars Dealing
Yeah,
in
that's
sports.
right.
Got in the CYO tournaments. and-
Yes, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah. Your first boyfriend was from Carroll?
No,
My first boyfriend was from Carroll too.
Yeah. We met at CYO and we wrote back and forth and yeah, my parents wouldn't let me go to his prom because we used to do things like that.
Right.
I was like,
Well, see, and that
sure.
was, in my world, you had Carroll High and you had Carroll Kemper, and you
Yes.
didn't cross the tracks.
Oh,
to
yes.
the other person's
Yes.
prom.
Yeah.
And I would want to wear like an orange shirt. My dad was like, "You can't wear an orange shirt." Dad.
Yeah.
Because Carroll High's colors were black and orange. Yeah, so that's where my roots are. I went to the University of Northern Iowa. So I was a Panther, but I was telling Carol I bleed black and gold. So I grew up closer to Iowa State, but in Iowa, it's like being a Packer or Viking. You can't be a Hawkeye and a Cyclone. You have to be one or the other. And I don't know why my family chose Iowa, but we did. And
They won the football game or basketball game last night.
they did. Yeah. They should have won it more handily.
I still follow them.
Right? But I was telling Carol, I said, my husband and I, since we met, he's a Wisconsin Badger, and I'm a Hawkeye. And so our adult outing every year has been the Iowa-Wisconsin game. Every year we mark it on our calendar, we go no matter which venue it's at. But we're stuck now because they moved that game to rivalry week. It used to be Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa, Nebraska, and they moved the Iowa, Wisconsin game to rivalry week, which means it's the Friday after Thanksgiving, which also means it's the second weekend of deer option. Right? Yeah. So you can imagine what those conversations are like. You have one weekend of shotgun. Can't we do the other weekend? So we'll see. We'll see. Check in next year, see who won that battle. If we're going to the game, I won. If we aren't going to the game, he won. I conceded graciously. Any other questions?
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.